afternoon and welcome. My name is John Koch. The name of the talk is Making Sense of Presidential Politics. Taking a page from the Obama campaign, yes we can. And I hope you'll be able to feel the burn. That's the destination, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. It's harder to reach than a moonshot. Many have tried. Some have even tried to climb over the fence unsuccessfully. But making the move to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue requires you have to run a marathon, 50 states, 50-state marathon to be elected president. Requires grit, determination, money, organizational tactical skills, having a message, and being authentic. So let's just talk a little bit about some of the contenders, past and present, who have tried and in some cases come close, and in rare cases succeeding. The successful campaign is the unusual campaign. I was very fortunate as I was completing my graduate studies at Columbia, and Jimmy Carter was gearing up for his campaign, and I connected at a very early stage in the campaign, had unusual access, and rose within the campaign structure from a field organizer to a coordinator of the Foreign Policy and Defense Task Force in Washington, and was able to witness from a very close-in perspective how decisions are made at the top levels of a political campaign. One of the most important ingredients, two important ingredients, crucial ingredients after you've got money and expended the physical stamina that it takes and the endurance. You have to have a message, and you have to come across as authentic. Bush 41 used to complain about that vision thing. He could never provide that aspirational goal, and so he lost to Bill Clinton in '92. It's very simple. You've got to come across with a very convincing explanation as to why you want to be president, where you want to take the country, what your domestic priorities are, and how you want the United States to be involved in the world as a world leader. We're inevitably involved, but to what extent and in what form? If we look at the current campaign, let's look at the successful nominees and the also-rans. Thus far, this presidential campaign is shaping up as a kind of a comical extravaganza, although the stakes, if the stakes weren't so high. Breaking news. The campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski of the Trump campaign, has just been giving his walking papers, escorted out of Trump Tower in an elevator, and I don't know whether they gave him a bus ticket back to New Hampshire, but he's out. He was responsible for Trump's, to a large extent, Trump succeeding in being the nominee, but he's now past his use date, and more experienced hands are taking over for the general election. So campaigns are cauldrons for ambition, and it really tests your ability to survive in a no-holds-barred atmosphere. This is only the second time in American history that a person who has not been elected to public office or has held a high position in the military has been the nominee of a major party. And it's ironic. The last time was in 1940 when the Republicans nominated Wendell Willkie on an isolationist American First platform. Very similar to what Donald Trump is peddling. Will he be more successful than Wendell Willkie, who lost in a landslide, we don't know. But one of the very interesting things is that although Trump is the nominee, he hasn't solidified support within the Republican Party. Therefore, there's an open question as to whether there will be a revolt at the convention and an alternative will be named. It's unlikely, it can't be excluded. What's interesting is that the 1940 convention, Wendell Willkie was able to capitalize on the spontaneous eruption of support within the convention. So conventions can go in their own direction. Trump has been unable to make peace within the party establishment. A number of prominent Republicans are passing up the convention, including the last two nominees and the last two presidents. It's unprecedented. So how was Trump able to overcome his rivals? 17 at the start of the selection process for the nominee, and he was the last man standing. He overcame the competition offered by Cruz, Ted Cruz, who Maureen Dowd, a wonderful columnist for the New York Times, characterized as a creepy, calculating ideologue. Marco Rubio, a hungry lightweight. Chris Christie, a vindictive bully. And Jeb Bush passed his sell-by date. A man with no political experience wiped out the entire Republican contenders. Okay. So what Trump has revealed in terms of his persona is a ability to inspire a certain demographic. He has a personality, he has charisma, and he has authenticity, and he has a message. His message, make America great again. But he's failed to capitalize on his early status as nominee presumptive by failing to respond to Hillary's situation with emails, which has dogged her candidacy. He's failed to make the connection between making America great again and building America infrastructure-wise. That's where his expertise lies. He's been totally silent on that front. Meanwhile, his financial situation has deteriorated, although I'm sure he could write a check for $50 or $100 million. Right now he's got $1 million in the bank. Clinton's 42, and she's already embarked on a very ambitious advertising campaign in some important swing states. So he has fiddled sort of while Rome burned, and the burning is still continuing. As far as Bernie Sanders' campaign, as far as on the Democratic side, we had a very interesting contest between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. So let's talk about that for a minute. Hillary is a very conventional candidate, running a conventional campaign, although there was less internecine warfare in her campaign. It collapsed in 2008 owing to inter-campaign feuding. This time, Roby Moore, I believe I'm pronouncing his name correctly, took the reins, and he and the campaign spokesman were the only people we heard from. And she ran a fairly smooth campaign, benefiting, of course, from the African-American demographic getting her off to a very sharp start. The really interesting part of the Democratic process was embodied by Bernie Sanders, the improbable candidate who caught fire. And millions of people felt the burn on the campaign trail. He was talking common sense to a large number of Americans who have been left out economically, income inequality, offering universal health care, free tuition in colleges, and expanded Social Security, and so forth. Almost like a messiah offering manna to the masses. And he drew mega crowds to his rallies in the tens of thousands. And he won 23 states out of some 55 contests. The problem with the Sanders campaign was that it was all driven by volunteer field organization, and he never was able to translate those mega attendance and rallies into turnout at the polls. And my own suspicion, having worked as a volunteer, is that he didn't have the professional field organizers that is necessary for every campaign to succeed. In Florida, he had 3 people on the payroll. Although he had a payroll of 1,000 people nationwide, he failed to win in some very critical states, or at least gain more delegates. Now, that's not to say that we're not in store for some contentious conventions. Not contested conventions, as was the original thinking, but contentious conventions. Conventions in which the platform reflects, at least in the case of the Democrats, many of the proposals that he put forward. How much and to what degree Hillary will agree, it's hard to say. Unless she attracts the supporters of Sanders supporters in large numbers, my own belief is that she's going to be in trouble. She doesn't have the charisma, the authenticity, the personality that Trump does. And that's his trump card. He's behind right now in national polls by 7 or 8 points. He's had a dismal last several weeks or month. So he could close that gap very rapidly. Clinton has not demonstrated that she has a vision of where she wants to take the country. Her slogan is working for us. What does that mean? First of all, she's working for herself. She has a lot of experience, but very few accomplishments. It's often cited child's health care, and my hat's off to her for that. But in her 8 years as senator and her 4 years as Secretary of State, I'm hard-pressed to think of a single positive association. She was on the wrong side on the decision to invade Iraq, and I'm willing to cut her some slack in that regard because many people were kind of taken in by the Bush administration. Her handling of I think she kind of got a bum rap in Benghazi because at her level that was not her responsibility, and the people on the ground should have had more of a better understanding of the chaotic political environment in Libya. I don't understand her email, how she could set up a private server. Not even the president would be allowed to set up a private operation in the White House, which is controlled by the Army Signal Corps communication within the White House. I think that she was probably, her motivation might have been to prevent attacks if and when she decided to run for president, and I think she was already on that, had made up her mind. And by the way, most of our early presidents were previous secretaries of state, so that's an advantage that, not recent ones, but the early ones, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe, they were all secretaries of state preceding their presidency. You want to cut it?